When it comes to salaries, municipal workers are highly paid compared to the private sector counterparts. Unions are set to be negotiating for increases that exceed inflation. Is this sustainable for municipalities and the ability to deliver services? Professor Kedibone Phago from the University of the Northwest is here to unpack this for us. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Does the data indeed prove that when it comes to salaries being paid in the private sector compared to salaries being paid by municipalities, that you are more likely to get a higher salary working for a municipality compared to working for a private entity, even though you're doing exactly the same job?
Morning, Eldrin, and thanks for having me. It is actually a much more complex picture in local government. It actually depends on where largely the municipality is located. Largely metros that are very central to economic activities, the answer is yes, yes, yes. We do see a lot of very good perks for their employees that are very, very high compared to the normal employee in government or in the province or even in the private sector. But those that are in municipalities that are very rural and poor really are just struggling as much.
Yeah, so you're saying that even when it comes to being in comparison with the other spheres of government, local as well as national, that some municipalities actually pay more?
Very high. And this is actually largely on the basis of how our system of governance has been configured. So we have what we normally call the public service employee. It is an employee that is employed according to the Public Service Act. In the main are people that are working for national government departments and provincial government departments. And then you find employees that are located in local government, for example. And that is a completely different arrangement because each municipality, it's an entity on its own. It has got its own municipal council that makes a determination. Of course, we do have the local government bargaining council that normally deals with those issues, but by and large, these are within each and determination of each and every municipal entity.
Yeah. And with that said, of course, Prof, then comes the assessment that needs to be done. And that is whether the municipalities are getting value for the money that they pay their employees. And I don't know if there's been any reports that have looked into this. I know one of the biggest complaints that the AG has raised, the Auditor General has raised, is that sometimes you find that municipalities would employ individuals, unskilled individuals who are not necessarily qualified for those positions. And then on top of that, those municipalities will then go and get consultants to do the jobs of the people that have been employed to do that work.
So this is a very important question you are raising, Eldrin, and it's complex. In fact, we can date it as far back as the inception of the new democratization of our local government system in the year 2000. So what has happened over many years since then is that there have been a lot of intervention to consolidate. In fact, there was the first major intervention was called a Project Consolidate. It was essentially to make sure that municipalities are supported, that they are functional. So you had a lot of interventions from many institutions in the country and very key institutions like the Development Bank of Southern Africa, the DBSA, that would put in a lot of support in terms of financials, in terms of engineering, even in terms of administration, just to make sure that municipalities are afloat. But what we have seen over many years was that all those efforts really come to naught. Efforts subsequent to that where, you remember the local government turnaround strategy, there was back to basics. We are talking about the district development model now. So these are the efforts that have been put in place over many years that were trying to make sure that municipalities actually give value for money for their citizens. And this has not worked as it should. And in the main, in my understanding, is that we've seen a lot of political interference, but political interference that mainly pushed for deployees in local government that do not qualify. And this has collapsed, in my view, by and large, the system of local government. So what we are seeing now, it's not really something that is just happening for as a surprise, but it has been something that has been coming for many years. And even with the best interventions that we've had in place, putting in a lot of money and support for municipalities, it has really yielded very minimal, if anything.
Yeah. And one thing, Prof, that I've been thinking a lot about, and I have to say over a couple of years also, is that if you look at the structure of a political party, let's make an example, in this case, the majority party, which is the ANC, that the ANC has its branches and then it has its regional structures, which would be considered more junior compared to, for instance, an REC would be considered more junior to an NEC. Is that what the party then does is that the party then takes the people who are at the REC, who are more junior, some of them not experienced, being deployed at a local government level, where we are actually dealing here with the cold face of service delivery, where you need the most talented, I believe, most talented people to ensure that services are delivered. Because even the department, whichever department you can think of, that department, its brick and mortar structure is in a municipality.
And so that is, for me, that is a very incisive analysis, Eldrin, that you are giving, because what has happened over many years, especially if we are going to use ANC, which you are correctly on point, that it is the majority party at the moment, is that the many of the deployees, in fact, ANC itself, below its national structure, has actually been a very chaotic party in provinces, in local government. I think since the heydays of the ANC, which actually ended largely since Thabo Mbeki left the party, I think one major element of the leaders of the ANC that you can literally accredit them was they tried to maintain a strong organizational discipline. But since we've seen the 2007 dispensation of the ANC under Jacob Zuma, I think we've seen a decay in the ANC, and that has really wreaked havoc in the local government sphere. And the linkages of the politics, those chaotic politics, to municipalities has actually been even worse, because they used municipalities for corruption, to pillage resources. And it's so sad, because if we actually look back at the investments that have been made over many years and what we have derived out of that as a community, it's just very sad to look and to dissect. And as you correctly pointed out in the beginning, these are actually pointed out in the AG's reports. And many of these legislatures and municipal councils are even privy to much more damning reports that were not actually even made public.
Yeah. And finally, in the President's opening of Parliament address, he spoke about helping municipalities that are struggling. Also, remember, there is the eThekwini Presidential Committee that has been set up to intervene with the instability in terms of service delivery in eThekwini. So mirroring this particular model to various other municipalities, what is it that the Presidency as well as Treasury should be looking at when it comes to then the salaries that are paid to individuals and whether or not we are able to get a return on investment?
We need to credit such kind of interventions, like the eThekwini interventions, Aldrin, using highly experienced individuals that we have seen their work over many years and credited it. But that is a stopgap measure. We need an overhaul system of local government that is very genuine, and there are many ideas on the ground, but often they are pushed back because interventions that are sustainable and that are credible will actually not benefit politicians who are very hungry and wants to maintain the level of corruption in local government. So we need also law enforcement system to kickstart their kickstart their activities and try to zoom into local government sphere if we are really going to return to the years and days of service delivery.
Yeah, and also avoid a situation where you have municipalities unable to pay their staff members. Thank you so much for making time for us. That was Professor Kedibone Phago, who is from the University of the Northwest.